Meeting to order. This is the October 24th, 2012 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. Moving on to business. We had discussed this 2 weeks ago and that we didn't have a quorum. We have a notice of intent. This is 1001 Pawtucket Boulevard. Aaron, do we have a DEP number on that? We should. 20606.
We should, but I don't have it with me.
You don't have it with you? Okay. The project location is 1001 Pawtucket Boulevard, and it's construction of a berm and pumping stations within the floodplain at 1001 Pawtucket Boulevard. It's concerning, they have it listed as isolated land subject to flooding, but it's also a floodplain. There was a request from the applicant to continue this, and during the no quorum meeting, we had indicated to folks that were here that it would be continued to the first December meeting. I believe, I don't have the date for that, but that will be continued. Well, we need a motion, but.
The meeting in December is December 12th?
December 12th? Okay, so do I have a motion to continue that one at the request of the applicant to the December 12th meeting?
Motion to continue it to the December 12th meeting?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. So that will be, if there's anyone here interested in that particular project, again, that's the 1001 Pawtucket Boulevard. That will be continued to the December 12th. That's the second Wednesday in December meeting this year. Moving on is a request for determination of applicability. Cross Point LP. Project location is 900 Chelmsford Street, and it's to replace a concrete deck and metal pan on a pedestrian bridge. This is at Cross Point and over the Middlesex Canal, the River Meadow Brook. There's a couple of pedestrian walkways, and the applicant, apparently they have heating elements in the concrete to keep so they don't use salt and sand in the wintertime to melt the ice and snow that falls on the pedestrian walkway. Apparently the element has failed. They have to chip out the old concrete, and they've noticed that there's some rust, I guess, under the metal pan that's underneath that, so they want to replace, the contractor is going to be replacing the metal pan plus the heating elements, and then obviously new concrete. And they're going to, from what I understand, they're going to be doing a little bit of trimming back of some of the overhanging brush along the pedestrian walkway. But other than that, there's really no alteration at all to any of the resource area. If you could come up to the podium and identify yourself for the record.
I'm John Butler from Associates, and we'll be the general contractor on the job, working for Yale and Cross Point. And you've explained it pretty accurately as to the scope of work and what we'll be doing. I don't know if there's any questions.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to open it up for questions in just a second. If there's any, the information was in our packets for 2 weeks ago. Is there any questions from the applicant on this? Commissioner Lovely, Commissioner Varnum? Nothing from the chair, Commissioner Chalupka, Commissioner Biedron? All right. Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns regarding this determination of applicability? Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns? Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns? Okay. I feel that this was based on the filing and what they're doing. We've had previous work in this particular stretch with respect to these pedestrian bridges and the walkways that connect them, and we've -3'd them. So I don't see that there's anything appropriate that would require us to do anything otherwise. So if I have a motion regarding that.
I move to issue a -3 on the determination with the conditions that appropriate measures be taken to prevent debris from entering the stream, and that the roots of the vegetation that needs to be cut shall be left in place so the vegetation can regrow.
Mm-hmm. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Lovely. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Commissioner Lovely? Aye. Commissioner Varnum? Chair is yes. Commissioner Chaluka?
Aye.
Commissioner Bedrin?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. You're all set. -3 is that the work that you're doing is within a jurisdictional area that we are concerned with. However, what you're proposing to do it has minimal or no impacts in that particular area. Okay, it'll be a couple days before the determination is available, and
Okay.
and then you can proceed.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good night. Moving on. I'm going to take the next item out of order. We have 2 enforcement orders tonight. One's not on the agenda. It had just come up the other day. So I'd like to take the notice of intent from the city of Lowell next, because we have people here for that, and we do not have anyone here for this enforcement order. So I'd like to take that one second with the other enforcement order. I'm going to call a notice of intent in the city of Lowell. Aaron, do we have a DEP number on this one yet?
Yeah. Yes, I have that for you.
And it's 206-0698.
9/8.
Thank you. So 206-0698. The project location, bear with me on this because it's quite lengthy, is 221.15, 221.16, 221.17, 223.1, 341.1, 341.2, and 369.1 Jackson Street, also known as the Point Park Project. It's construction of a new public park at the confluence of the Pawtucket Canal, the Merrimack Canal, the Hamilton Canal, and the Lower Pawtucket Canal. And if you
Hi.
could identify
I'm-
yourself for the record?
Yes, of course. Hi there. My name is Rachel Kisker. I work for the Department of Planning and Development. I'm the Chief Design Planner for the DPD. And we're here tonight, again, to talk about Point Park Project. We have funding through a federal grant program to build a handicapped accessible walkway that will create part of the connection from downtown to the Gallagher Terminal for this location. The project site is located just north of the new blue bridge that was built in the Hamilton Canal District. It's south of Dutton Street and north of Jackson Street. The site will be part of the under-construction Hamilton Canal District, and again, this will be primarily a walkway along the canals, and it will be bordered by a park that will have lawn areas. I'm trying to see, I can't read which one says layout. It will be bordered by a park that will have areas of lawn, landscaped areas, and site amenities such as seat walls, benches, some bollard lighting, and there will also be a piece of signature artwork that has been worked on by our Cool department. So eventually, at some point, there'll be a sculpture on this site as well. We have here tonight for you our engineer, Bob Welsh from Childs Engineering, to speak to you about the issue of the floodplain. So if you have questions for Mr. Welch, he's here tonight. And he was the person, his engineering firm, Childs Engineering, submitted the letter that addressed some of the floodplain issues. But as you can see from the drawings that we have here tonight, the work that we're proposing will take place kind of on that node that's just to the edge of that new parking lot. And we'll actually be adding a landscaped area to that parking lot that exists there presently. So if you have questions regarding our submission, as I said, our engineer is here tonight to answer most of them, and we also have Craig Thomas, our Urban Renewal Project Manager, who can address some other specific areas that he wanted to talk about tonight.
Who's the second person that's here?
I'm sorry, we have Craig Thomas.
Craig.
Oh,
Oh,
you're kidding, I get it. Okay.
I think we know Mr. Thomas.
Sorry, Craig
Yeah, I have,
Thomas.
with respect to, let's drill down through this and handle the floodplain issue first, if you could approach the podium. And just for the record, could you identify yourself?
My name is Robert Welch. I'm with Childs Engineering.
The site, is the floodplain contained within the floodway of the canals, or does it come over the top? Is the entire site below the 100-year floodplain?
Actually, based on the FEMA map, one portion of the site is under the Zone A, which is a 100-year flood zone, which is basically the very tip. But in our letter, we state that we consider the floodplain to be contained within the canal walls. They will not overtop the canal walls, primarily due to the fact that the canal system has a flood control system on it. And historically, this canal system has not flooded during multiple flood events in the past. As recent as 2006, you had a 100-year flood event in that. They have control gates at the top of the canals that close, and that prevents floodwaters from the Merrimack from entering the canal system. So essentially, flooding can occur due to the man-made controls.
Okay, but from what I understand is that the floodway and the floodplain is contained within the walls of the Hamilton and the Lower Pawtucket, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What sort of regrading? I know there's been a lot of regrading on the site after the demolition of the buildings that were there previously. What sort of regrading or filling are you planning on doing with respect to bringing in the park and the walkway?
Actually, those questions probably would have been best for the landscape architect, who I don't believe is here, unless you want to address that. Our part of the project was pretty restricted to the rebuilding of the stone canal walls. As far as I know, the landscaping and the elevations is dependent on the proposed walkway that's behind the canal wall. The exact elevation, I'm not sure of. That's what the landscape architect was going to determine based on their landscape plans. My understanding is that the top of the canal wall, existing top of the canal wall, is essentially going to remain unchanged. Maybe some adjustments, I would guess, within a few inches to raise and lower the top cap of the granite block course would be the extent of the regrading on the canal wall face. Then the extent of the grading on the park itself, I would have to have Rachel speak about that.
Well, with respect to the canal wall, how extensive of repairs or replacements, or what are you planning on doing with respect to the canal walls themselves?
Oh, okay. I can provide backup if you need it.
Craig Thomas, City of Lowell. The canal walls are actually the other piece that I wanted to talk to the commission about. Per the wetlands regulations, these are considered inland bank. Now, you'll see I'm on the lower right portion that, I don't know if we can see a good picture of it. Well, this is the plan that shows it, but it's not very clear. There is one section of wall that caved in at one point that'll need basically to be rebuilt from the water line up. This is the section that I called out in talking about the distinct impacts on the linear distance on the bank impacts in the notice of intent. There's a variety of additional repairs that are proposed along the bank, but those are generally on an as-needed basis, and they're different and typically involve the capstone more so than an extensive wall rebuild. So I want to be clear on the full wall rebuild, but also indicate that we have potentially impacts proposed on the rest of it, but that really deals with the site conditions and what we feel needs to be done to stabilize it. Now, this gets into the additional piece that I put in the letter, which is that to be able to do much more than the full rebuild, we would have to overcome the presumption that this bank is wildlife habitat. Otherwise, we'd be more limited in the amount of bank that we could alter easily. We could come back and investigate additional alterations. But again, beyond the actual rebuild from the water up, which is about 36 feet on this, where you can see it, and we have, I put in 40 feet for our impacts. We have other pieces, principally capstone repair proposed. But again, that's a little bit contingent upon this issue of the wildlife habitat for the inland bank.
Now, when you indicate you're doing some capstone replacement, the elevation, the top elevations of the capstones won't change at all, will it?
Well, this is what the engineer had spoken to. You proposed the top elevation to remain identical or within very minor changes.
Say changes within inches would be the existing, the changes would be within several inches of the existing capstone
All right,
elevation.
and there certainly won't be any lateral differences.
No, it'll be replaced in kind.
Yeah, it's largely in-kind replacement that we've been discussing.
All right, now, well, I guess I'm a little curious as to just to the grading. I know you're going to have a walkway that's going to run along, and probably a continuation of the walkway that's on the northern side already. And that will, I guess that will continue on beyond that pedestrian bridge and go all the way around the point. I guess I'm a little curious as to the grading from the park down to the walkway, or will be the walkway down into the park? I mean, that's, and what sort of runoff will be, what sort of structures will be put into place to control runoff? Because I know on the northern side now, there is a fairly substantial bank that comes down towards the walkway, and I know I know there's some plan to change that at some point in time, and this obviously will perhaps impact that, but.
Yeah, there are two portions to that, and if we want to get very, very specific, we can work with Rachel on this, but generally the grading starts lower at the parking lot, comes up slightly to the edge of the walkway where there's bench seating. So the grading actually, the water movement will be away from the walkway that's proposed along the edge. Now, I know there were comments from project review staff about erosion control during construction, which were very legitimate, and we had said we didn't show it particularly on the plans, but it had been called out in the general notes, and it'd be more than appropriate to try and define exactly how and what type of erosion controls would be used, say, straw wattles along the capstones to ensure that the capstone at the end of potential erosion, that everything's maintained on the walkway side as work is being done. If you want additional clarification on grading, Rachel can.
Okay, I suppose that's during the construction phase. I'm also talking post-construction, the final as-built, as to what the gradients will be away from the canals?
So, again,
Because the way they are now, the way they are now, they're not.
yeah, the idea in general, and I don't want to speak too much on this, is that the walkway, to meet ADA standards, incidentally, has to be very, very flat. As you know, we have a maximum 2% grade, and a 1.5% or 2% grade horizontally as well as vertically. So it's very flat and will be more or less at the grade of the canal capstone, correct? And so as a part of that, that will be a flat surface all around. Now again, that flat surface will come back and come to the benches that will be set there, and that will have the that will be graded up to the top, and then it will flow back on the backside to the parking lot. So you'll have a flat piece along the canal capstone. There'll be some areas, especially on the. Does this have a pointer? It does. Doesn't show up though. Yeah. One would be if you can see the signature art piece. I know you had time to review this out on the left. I guess the squiggly
be
thing
to the
is
west.
signature art piece. Just to the right of that is an area where there's it is graded down towards the canal. It's broken by granite steps as an access way, and then continuing around the curve on the other side, there's also another access way that is proposed to be graded. Is there a break in the wall there, Rachel? There is. Yeah, there's a break in the wall there. Yeah, is that doable? We're talking about advanced technology here. Potentially, we could do this. Yeah. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, if you drag it down to the corner, a little further. Yeah. So there you can see the signature art piece is the black piece down here in the corner. That's Aaron's indicating, and then you can see to the right of that, there's a break in the wall with some. With a grass entry with some inset granite, and then to the left is the same. As you follow up along the wall, you see a break by the other trees.
Now, how much of this site will be altered when the judicial center moves in?
This one will not be altered at all. This is, thankfully, in general, the Judicial Center is now coming and they started construction document development, but this is just across the canal from that proposed site. So actually, this is, thank you. This project is meant to connect the existing walkway that was already built on the judicial side. There's a walkway on the southern edge of the Hamilton Canal from here that runs over to the trestle bridge that the state built. That runs along the area of the proposed Jackson Street extension. On the other side of that will be the Judicial Center. So that walkway may or may not be impacted by the Judicial Center work. We're hoping it will not be, and that a part of our work with them will be to ensure that it is not. But this project is meant to link that piece, which was already built, to the other existing canal walkways pieces over by the National Park headquarters. And the funding was for an ADA accessible walkway between those components to finalize the system to get from points downtown to the Gallagher Terminal.
What, if you know, what is the ultimate plan for where the parking lots are now? From what we understood, those were to be, from Trinity, those were to be temporary.
Yes,
but-
it's true, and that's why in your materials for stormwater report, I submitted the comprehensive report for the district. Again, part of the concept of the Hamilton Canal District is to create a pre-permitted area wherein a developer, Trinity Financial, could work with us up front to do all of the permitting necessary and set in place developable sites that once we had the financing in place, we could move forward with. So this parking lot here is actually temporary, and this is not the long-term treatment here. What will eventually happen is that this parking lot will be split almost down this area. So incidentally, this is a new landscape area with trees that we're going to install here. This will be split through here. There will be an access roadway, like a small turnaround here with a building to the north and a building to the south. Each of those buildings will have a footprint smaller than the existing, well, the total amount of impervious area will be smaller than the parking lot is now because they'll install additional green spaces around them as borders to the park. And in fact, this northern border, we had a lot of discussions about that, and this is actually running along a portion of the existing parking lot, so that is utilizing the existing the asphalt out there. That may remain when the final building is built, and it may be shifted. Well, there's not a lot of distance to shift it. What will likely happen is it will be incorporated into some element of the facade on this side. It may be able to be maintained as it is, but the feeling is that because of how close it is to the building, it will have to be rebuilt. I forgot to mention these 4 trees. One of the things that was, I know it's of interest, and it came up early in the discussions, is that there are those beautiful red maples out on the point, just outside the existing Freudenberg Foundation. We're going to try and use the tree, what do you call that, the acorn, the large scoop to pick up the mature trees? Yeah, tree spade. To pick them up and move them and transplant them here. Now, they're probably 8 or 10-inch caliper, so survival is 50-50, maybe a little bit worse, but we talked with the landscape architect on the project, and he thinks there's a decent chance that they may survive the transplanting. We want to give that a shot. Yeah. Oh, and so to finish the answer to the parking lot question, once this parking lot will be removed when a new parking garage is built. So there were 2 parking garages generally proposed as part of the Hamilton Canal District and the Jam Plain area. One is the early garage that was already built that services the incoming Lowell Community Health Center that will provide parking for residents of the Bank of America building along Jackson Street, the one that has the Meta Health Center that hasn't been redeveloped for some time. But there are going to be significant additional parking demands from the buildings that we talked about here, as well as on the other side of the Freudenberg building, what are known as parcels 8 and 9, where Canal Street now dead ends by the canal. There are 2 residential buildings proposed on either side of the roadway. When that road goes over the canal, which again, we come before this commission, there will be a parking garage then built on the right. So then all of the surface parking will be consolidated there, and we'll build out the remaining building footprints in the pre-permitted concept. Actually, the Conservation Commission is one of the few examples of where the permitting is a step-by-step process. That everything else was pre-permitted, but as a part of the MEPA, Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act, final environmental impact report, we gave draft permit applications, but that it was understood that each piece that was within Concom jurisdiction would come back before the Conservation Commission for review and approval.
All right, back to the park. What's your time frame? I noticed that your planting schedule is indicating a spring planting for most of your new plantings and replantings. So I take it you're planning on getting this done, sort of starting in the spring?
Relatively quickly, yeah. We just actually received the bid opening was on Monday, and so we're assessing the bids that were received and reviewing, moving ahead. Were you anticipating much work in the fall or to begin in the spring, really?
Hi. Yes, we were hoping to start as soon as we could. Our funding is via a Sarbanes grant through the federal government, and the idea was to get started as soon as possible, to start spending that money, because they are anxious to get us to actually start drawing down on our grant from the federal government. So our plan was to hopefully at least mobilize in the fall, and because a lot of what we're doing will be, ordering bollards and things like that, use the winter as like the lead time for some of the items we have to order. So it's do a little bit of work in the fall, and then the bulk of it will be in the spring.
Now, for lack of a better term, the area to the south of the parking, the temporary parking now is basically a demolition area. Is there some, and it's not part of your project, it's just sort of a big open space. Is there some way, because we had run into this, and Craig, you may recall for the Folk Festival this year, where the National Park Service wanted to do some work along the northern Riverwalk area. And there was, it kind of goes from an industrial active construction zone to, finished landscaping inside of a foot. Is there some way, you're going to have a beautiful park there that, are you going to expend some significant funds on to isolate or insulate the park, at least from the active construction zone? I'm not anticipating buildings going up within the next 6 months, so they're going to follow this park being built, and I understand you kind of want to do that because it's going to be isolated once the buildings go up, or somewhat isolated, so you want to get that in place first. But is there going to be some way to screen it off in the meantime, still provide access, but at least some sort of either visual buffer or some sort of aesthetic buffer?
Are you talking about the construction whereby the parking lot would be redeveloped, or on the other side where they've been staging for the Jackson Street
Yeah, well,
work?
where your hand is right now there on
In
this,
here?
yeah, in that area, and yeah, even during the construct, just to, because otherwise you just get all of that construction debris just ends up, and people don't use it, or they end up walking through it and just dropping their trash as they go through it, because it's just not it's an eyesore to begin with. You look left and it's beautiful, you look right and it looks awful, so.
Yeah, this is something that we've been working on. I know, just for example, on the south side of the canal, where we have the Jackson Street scope of work basically dead ends, so you have asphalt that just ends, and you have an open vacant area, which I now can relatively confidently promise will be a trial court in the next few years. There was a pile of dirt that they sort of dumped there, and I asked them very nicely and then sort of made them regrade it and seed it, so now actually we have a stabilized area out there. Similarly, we have a relationship with Trinity where the active construction zone on the other side, we can work with them to screen that parcel, because the parcel on the other side of this roadway over here, unfortunately, is designated to be the laydown area for Trinity's construction for some time to come. So when you first come across the new Hamilton Canal Bridge, on the left is the parking lot with the proposed park on the outside, and on the right was one of the parcels you're discussing. That's the construction laydown area. There are definitely some things we can investigate with Trinity to try and screen that better or make that a more appealing area, especially once the Freudenberg nears completion. As that develops, they're going to rebuild the streetscape on both sides, but you will still have that parcel there. There may be things we can do to improve that. I agree, and I find it interesting to have beautiful new buildings near active construction and laydown areas, but that's sort of a weird thing, and I understand that that's not necessarily a going concept all the time. The other thing, and maybe you were getting at, and maybe I went the wrong way with this, was as the actual staging area for this work, we're anticipating being this parking lot. Are you talking about the area where the trucks are now that they're working on the Freudenberg building?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one right across the street. And, you know, we just had Trinity install a fence. I tried to get them to put some chain link along the canal to prevent debris or anything from falling in that direction. And as far as visually and aesthetic impacts, we can investigate it with them. We still own it. It's still a City of Lowell parcel that they are accessing through our land disposition agreement. So we do have a lot of flexibility to work with them as to how that is accomplished.
All right. I don't have anything further at this time. Commissioner Lovely? Commissioner Varnum? Commissioner Chalupka? Commissioner Bedrin?
My only suggestion, when you guys are transplanting those maple trees, I've had horrible luck in my life transplanting trees, so I would maybe just include in the specs something that says, you know, if these don't survive within yada yada time frame, you are required to plant new trees.
Is that in the spec?
I think we've included that.
Yeah.
I think we included that and added plant new trees. I think we did like a 6-inch caliper, like the maximum you could do without getting crazy with, you know, more tree spades and things like that. So that's a good point, and I'll double check it, but I believe that's in there.
Okay.
Thank
Is that the only 4 trees that you guys are transplanting? Yeah, okay.
Just to be clear, those are not the only 4 trees for planting, but the
Yeah,
feeling was
that
so
you're
strong that they were
transplanting. Yeah.
transplanting, yeah.
Yeah, I always just throw in there, like, if these don't survive within a year, you're still required to put new ones in. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a reasonable condition as well.
Just the last year, you have seen the Development Services comments on, with respect to using straw wattle as opposed to hay bales and
Yep.
facilitation control. Okay.
Yeah, we previously used actually filter mitts, but I think straw wattles are easier to work with around the capstones, but whatever is appropriate, or we could work with Aaron to make sure that he's comfortable with whatever we choose.
I think from our perspective, we're happy with either the straw wattle or the filter mat, whatever works. It's just the concern over the spread of invasives.
Right. Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns? Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns? Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns? All right. Is there any further questions from the commission? All right, do I have a motion?
Well, just again, because of the issue with it, I just wanted to clarify if the commission's comfortable as a part of the motion, accepting the engineer's statement that the floodplain is contained in the canal bank, and that if you agree that the granite block wall is not necessarily wildlife habitat, to overcome the presumption of it being wildlife habitat, as is standard in the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah, you're talking with respect to repairing
Yeah.
the capstones.
Because it gets to be a little trickier if it's not overcome, how much flexibility we have. If you're comfortable with the information that provides you, that really these types of environments are not considered to be wildlife habitat as defined in the regulations, even though the presumption is always for inland bank that it has all of the following characteristics, and that for individual projects you have to then apply to conservation commissions to overcome those presumptions.
Yeah, we've done, as you're aware, we've done extensive permitting along canalways, and I know that there's some language in the Wetlands Protection Act that seems to purport that canalways are not resource areas, but we've taken the tack, and plus we have the City of Lowell ordinance that says otherwise, but, and I personally dispute that reading of the Wetlands Protection Act really on 2 grounds. As you know, my opinion obviously is that the waterways lead directly into, into our rivers and streams that are resource areas within a very short period of time, and 2, that these waterways are utilized by our fauna, which we are charged with protecting under the Conservation Commission. They are wildlife corridors and support wildlife habitat. Yes, so that being said, the type of work that you're proposing along for the capstones is certainly beneficial to shoring up the canals and for their longevity and to keep them in shape such that where they continue to allow to deteriorate, then much more invasive work would be required in order to repair them and which could be more detrimental to the wildlife habitat and to the purpose of the Wetlands Protection Act. So in that respect, depending on the type of work, and certainly this is, replacement and repair of in-kind capstones is a fairly minimally invasive type work. And again, I don't know if you're planning on doing the work while the canals are drawn down or whether they're going to be wet, but it seems to me that every time we've heard of capstone, that depending on the size of the stones, most of them can be done while the canals have water in them. So.
Yeah, and it's a mix. And again, the portion of extensive repair that we discussed, maybe we can do it with the water in the canals. It would be beneficial to do it from the canal side, or the canal from the walkway side to get in there when it's drawn down. But coordinating with the Nell is difficult. But over the life of the project, that shouldn't be impossible. Typically, it's in the fall that they do their drawdown and do some maintenance before the winter.
Right. And I know you don't have any control over when the canals are dry and when NL and Boot Hydro control that. So. All right. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Second by Commissioner Bieder, motion by Commissioner Chalupka. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Now, this is before us requesting a notice of intent, both under the Wetlands Protection Act and the City of Lowell Wetlands Ordinance. That has been approved. We have a new wetlands ordinance. Has that become effective yet?
It is. It was
Okay.
effective October 17th.
So we're operating under the new wetlands ordinance, okay?
Correct.
All right. I know I was at that meeting, but I wasn't aware of when it became effective, so.
Yeah.
all
It's
right.
confirmed.
Not that it doesn't change anything as far as this particular project goes, but do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to issue a Lowell Standard Order of Conditions with 2 additional conditions. First, that if it's not already in the plan, that the 4 red maple trees, if they do not survive, be replaced with other comparable trees, and that the erosion control be done with straw wattles or filter mitts as noted in the response to the comments from the Division of Development Services.
Again, as a part of that motion, though, if the commission's comfortable, we're requesting to agree or some finding that agrees with the engineer's letter stating that the floodplain is contained within the canal walls, and only for this project, this has nothing to do with the canal-wide system, but for this project and proposed work, that the presumption of wildlife habitat is overcome, so that we have the flexibility to do the repairs.
And that's for the MIPA? Is that for that going forward, or?
No, this is singularly, again, it's for any project that impacts any of the resource areas in general. You can ask for different presumptions to be overcome. In general, no one does, because it doesn't make any sense, except for cases where it is clearly spelled out that, well, these kinds of things actually sometimes overcome this presumption almost by themselves. And I think I sent the list of things that generally are overcome that presumption, and many of them are very similar to this. So.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, we've discussed it, and by making the motion, I think the commission agrees with it, but is there, I guess I'm a little curious as to why you need a specific.
I just wanted to make it clear. I just sometimes, because we haven't done a lot of findings of fact, that it's written up somehow so that it's clear how the discussion worked.
All right, I mean, it'll be part of the official record in the minutes that it was discussed. I mean,
Okay.
and
I'd also point out in the application, it's duly noted in the narrative.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we need to make anything particular, with respect to the order, that the presumption was overcome. I think we've discussed it, and it's part of the overall umbrella of the order being issued, so.
And this is where, as far as the way that the permits are put together, you all have truly a better sense at this point than I do about how the things that you discuss are brought forward and brought into a permit, so that's fine.
I mean, if there's a specific reason as to why you want it, we can further discuss it, but.
No, as long as it's clear, that's all. It's one of those things that I want to put forward for discussion, and we discussed it, and
But I, for one, as one member, am satisfied that the burden has been overcome, that the wildlife habitat's contained within the canalway itself, and does not, come over over the bank onto the site that you're working on.
Okay.
If there's any other commission members that feel otherwise, I'm sure they'll make their opinion heard. But, all right. We have a motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Commissioner Lovely?
Did it get second?
It was seconded
I'll
by
second.
Commissioner Bedrin, I believe.
I'll second. I don't think he's pulling a fast one on us.
Did I miss the second?
Yeah, second.
Oh, I did. Okay, by Commissioner Bedrin. The motion was, I'm assuming the motion was done.
Yep.
Okay, so, all right. I apologize for that. Thank you. Seconded by Commissioner Bedrin. All in favor or opposed signify by saying yea or nay. Commissioner Lovely?
Yea.
Commissioner Barnum?
Yes.
Chair is yes. Commissioner Chalupka?
Aye.
Commissioner Bedrin?
Aye.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I can sign it.
All right. Moving on, this is an enforcement order, Paul Mercia, concerning DEP file number 2060584, concerning violation at 51 and 57 Shirley Avenue. The original project was construction of a single-family home in bordering land subject to flooding, the 100-year floodplain. As this commission is aware, an enforcement order had issued concerning the wholesale clearing of the lot, and as part of the enforcement order, Mr. Mercia was ordered to furnish the commission with a replanting and a restoration plan to restore the site and to restore the trees that were removed. We did receive a restoration plan. However, the commission considered that, and I believe this was about a month ago now. The commission considered that and had requested further and additional changes and more comprehensive changes to the restoration plan, which was sent back to Mr. Mercier. Those, in response to that, we received, I believe, 2 letters from Stephen Erickson from Norse Environmental, one, I believe, dated October 14th and one dated October 12th. Am I correct?
The 12th is the letter that notifies the commission that would not be attending the meeting that was on the 10th.
Correct, and indicating that there was a planned appeal of the, I believe, of the enforcement order. And as far as I'm aware, has there been an appeal? Have we been noticed that there has been an appeal?
No, there hasn't been a formal action. As the commission is aware, there is 60 days that a property owner has to appeal an enforcement order. There has been no formal action, and that appeal has to go to Superior Court. It's as opposed to a notice of intent or order of conditions, the appeal goes to DEP, But if it's an appeal of an enforcement order, it goes to Superior Court. There was no formal action taken on that we've received to date. There was a letter that was sent to the Superior Court and CC'd to the Commission that indicated that it seemed in the narrative that they were suggesting they may appeal the enforcement order, but that they were appealing the fines on procedural grounds. This Mass General, I think it's 21D, is what empowers communities to issue fines under local ordinances, and there's a certain process that needs to fall under. There was in our fine that we issued, once the Commission had required a $1,500 fine based on the timeline of the submittal of the replanting plan. Some information was not included to the property owner with respect to their appeal options of the fine. So all that means is that we're going to reissue the fine one more time, and they will then have 21 days from the reissuance of this fine to either pay, appeal to Superior Court, or there's also an option to appeal to what's basically an arbitrator through the city under another process.
All right, I want to get back to the fine. Secondly, I just want to deal with, I want to deal with just the actual enforcement order first, because this is a multi-step process. We had requested and ordered as part of the enforcement order for the Mr. Mercier and or his representatives to appear before us at the October 10th meeting with further additions to the restoration plan as discussed by the Commission at the last September hearing. We did not have a quorum at the October 10th, 2012 hearing, but the chair will note that Mr. Mercier nor any of his representatives were here that night. And we will also note that Mr. Mercier, is there anyone here on Mr. Mercier's behalf? Is not here tonight, likewise. So that being said, we have an open enforcement order, we have an open request or a pending request for more comprehensive restoration plan, which we still have not received. So the first thing we need to do as part of that is to consider what we intend to do with respect to the lack of response, other than an indication that an appeal is pending or an appeal is anticipated or planned or whatnot. It really doesn't matter to us. I mean, that Mr. Mercier can appeal it. That's certainly within his right. But in the meantime, we have a duty to protect the resource and should proceed accordingly. The property is in a unvegetated strip state right now. It obviously was part of, contemplated by the enforcement order and by the ordered restoration plan, which was discussed without the presence of Mr. Mercier, even though he was ordered or his representative to be here. And we still have not heard anything back yet with respect to that from Mr. Mercier, with respect to additions and changes and amendments to the restoration plan in line with what the Commission had discussed in our last September meeting. So that's the first item we need to discuss. The second item we need to discuss is as Aaron had indicated, the fine that was levied. I guess we need to ratify a ticket that goes to, how does that work?
Actually, there's no action necessary from the Commission. All that needs to be done at the staff level is that we need to reissue a ticket that provides all the options, the appeal options to the property owner. Under 21D, They have 21 days from the issuance of the ticket, whatever the violation is, to either pay the fine, appeal the Superior Court, the fine, not the enforcement order, just the fine, or there's also
Okay, so we don't
process through the
we
city.
don't need to do anything with
Nope.
respect to that? Has
Nope.
that issued yet?
We'll be issuing that tomorrow. So they'll have
And
21
that's a
days.
procedural issue with how the city, how that works and
Right.
processes through the city.
Right. It doesn't have any bearing on the enforcement order or the legality of the enforcement order.
Okay. And lastly, we need to consider going forward what we intend to do, whether we intend to make further orders with respect to the enforcement order, issue a secondary enforcement order for lack of, or a secondary violation for lack of compliance with what we've previously ordered and has not been complied with. Whether we intend to do that or just continue on with the existing enforcement order in violation. If I may note that every lack of action back from Mr. Mercier, if the commission finds it's a lack of action back from Mr. back from Mr. Mercier, is whether it's a continuing violation. And if so, do we intend to take any action on the continuing violation, or just, I know we had discussed this at the last September meeting and decided just to keep it all as a part of one, the original enforcement order in violation, but at this point in time, just for sake of opening it up for discussion, I think we need to address the issue as to whether this is a continuing violation or even a secondary violation, or, you know, an alternate or violation, and do we take action on that as separate from the existing enforcement order in violation of the enforcement order. And before I forget, Aaron, you had requested, do we need to specifically empower a conservation agent to be able to sign the ticket on behalf of the Conservation Commission?
There's no language or requirement in Wetlands Protection Act or the Lowell Wetlands Ordinance. However, it does state that supporting staff can act on behalf of the Conservation Commission, for instance, writing enforcement orders, issuing order of conditions, et cetera. What we, perhaps as a separate item from Shirley Ave, what we've discussed internally is just to strengthen staff's ability to issue fines once the commission has voted to levy a fine following an enforcement order, that there'd be a vote that formally states that development services staff, myself, Joe Genowitz, and Swathi Joseph, have the ability to take enforcement action on behalf of the
All right,
Conservation Commission.
we can take that up at the end of the
I think
meeting. I
that'd be
mean, that's a separate, it's coincidental to this, but it's
Correct.
ancillary to this, but it's separate. All right. All right, and actually, I want to mention one last thing, and that's from what I understand, the enforcement order has not been recorded at the registry, and it should be. So I'd like to entertain we can take that up first. I'd like to entertain a motion that our administrator or an agent is directed to forthwith record the enforcement order on this particular site at the Registry of Deeds, at the appropriate Registry of Deeds. So as a matter of procedure, I think we should do that in addition to anything else that we discussed tonight. So
We do that now? One motion now?
if you
Yeah, I'll
want.
motion to record the enforcement order at the Registry of Deeds.
All right. Do I have a second on that? Commissioner Lovely? Okay, all right. Any discussion on that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. So So if we could get that, if we could get that recorded.
We'll do that, yeah.
All right.
We'll get that done before the end of the week.
All right, now secondary, I'd like to open it up for discussion, the points that the chair raised, but anything else that's related to this particular enforcement order and the lack of response, other than just an indication that they may appeal. But we still have the obligation, as I had mentioned before, that we have an open and stripped parcel in the resource area that we've ordered to be restored, and we've had no action or cooperation back, so or perceived cooperation back from Mr. Mercier. So I'd like to open that up for discussion. Commissioner Lovely?
Just to clarify, Mr. Chairman, I think from what Aaron was saying, there's no need for us regarding the existing ticket. You folks will administratively taking care of reissuing the ticket and make sure it includes all the provisions and rights to Mr. Mercier. So there's nothing further that needs to be done on our.
As far as the fine that the commission had approved a levy on at the September meeting, that's the $1,500 fine.
Okay.
I think the issue of going forward, what to do with this, since there's been no response to the requirement of the commission to provide a refined plan according to the standards that were iterated during the September, I think it was September 12th meeting. That would require commission action.
Well, thanks for that clarification. My thought would be all those provisions that were discussed at the meeting at the end of September still stand, i.e. getting another or revised restoration plan and having Mr. Mercier or his representative come before the commission to present that plan still hold. What I'm not clear about is, I think it would be cleaner to maybe look at, if possible, issuing, I guess the way I would, you folks can help me out administratively as to how we would proceed this way, but I would think asking Mr. Mercier to appear before the commission at the next meeting with what we had asked for him to do at this meeting, or I should say the October 10th meeting, and he still has been non-responsive. I would suggest having him do that, and if he doesn't appear, to issue a new fine in the equivalent amount of the existing fine, so I have the second fine for the same reasons why we find ourselves in this situation at this time. I'm not sure how we go about doing that. Can we, Mr. Chairman, kind of have a, so to speak, the clock running for a second enforcement action contingent upon whether or not Mr. Mercier shows up with what we had asked for the meeting at the end of September?
Well, to answer the direct question, yes, certainly, but that's one of the reasons why I had indicated that at the prior meeting, which we didn't have a quorum, we had requested Mr. Mercier and/or a representative to be in front of us with an updated restoration plan, and we still have not received it, and this is 2 weeks after that. Because we did not have a formal meeting, I suppose I'd give the party the benefit of the doubt that they may have been here and left. But you know, again, I guess I'm a little bit more liberal as far as that goes, that I'd be inclined to give someone the benefit of the doubt. But the simple fact of the matter is this is the next meeting. He's still not here. We still haven't received anything other than a letter from his or from Mr. Erickson that they may or may not appeal this. So that still doesn't answer. They may or may not be successful on the appeal, but that still doesn't answer the existing order, which you can't pick and choose what you're going to comply with. If you don't like the order, you have to appeal it. But in the meantime, you have to appeal it. You can't just ignore it.
No different than a speeding ticket.
Say again?
I said no different than a speeding ticket.
Right.
You pay it, appeal it.
Right. So, you know, I mean, he's got options, but in the meantime, he's ignoring active orders from the commission. So if he doesn't like them, he can come in and discuss them with us, but as I said again, we issued an order and it was ignored. And that's kind of what got him into trouble in the first place, so.
And I agree completely. Where I'm going with this is administratively, what's a more efficient process? Obviously, I'm of the opinion that Mr. Mercier or his representative should come before the commission to respond to our previous request. I recognize that, like you, give him the benefit of the doubt about the October 10th meeting, but here we are at the end of October and still no response. My thought is to make the formal request through this commission, have Mr. Mercier appear at our next meeting. If not, we issue a separate violation, or we add to the pending fine for the initial violation, and similar to what we're doing with that initial fine, recording that fine with the Registry of Deeds. We would record a subsequent fine with the Registry of Deeds. I'm not trying to be punitive here, but we have a non-responsive person to a commission request, and trying to find the most efficient and fairest way to have Mr. Mercier come before the commission so that we can resolve this matter once and for all.
Commissioner Varner?
I think Mr. Lovely's thoughts are probably in line to what should happen, but I think he's got the dates wrong, because what is the date of Mr. Erickson's last communication? Wasn't it here for the last meeting in September?
Yeah, it was, well, it was 2 days before the first meeting in October, when they were
One without the
intended.
quorum.
Correct, which was October
But,
10th.
no, I'm talking about the submission of the plan.
Oh, the plan submission?
The
that
plan
with
was
the
submitted for the
hand-drawn pieces on it?
second meeting of September, was it not?
Correct, that's
All right,
correct.
at that particular meeting, I believe I said that if a revised plan was not received by the next meeting, that fines would be issued retroactive to that meeting where the plan was submitted that was not appropriate. It was not acceptable. So, you know, to start the clock at this meeting after we give him another chance to come to a next meeting, I think is just way beyond the tolerance that we should be showing. So I believe it's in the minutes that I had requested that plan for the October 10th, was it? Or 12th?
October 10th.
October 10th meeting. No one appeared at that meeting, and no revised plan was submitted. We got a letter saying that there was going to be an appeal, but that, as someone pointed out, has nothing, as the chairman pointed out, really has nothing to do with our actions. He's not appealing to us, he's appealing to some other entity. Therefore, we need to continue on the path that we had set forth with the applicant, and that was that this plan was due at the second meeting that we held in September. It was not well done, it was not acceptable. We therefore gave the applicant already another chance to come in at the following meeting, the first meeting of October, with a revised plan. We have no revised plan, and the applicant did not appear. Go forward 2 weeks, we're at another meeting now, the applicant has not appeared, and we have no revised plan. Therefore, I think it's appropriate at this, and as far as the, as a secondary enforcement order, I feel that this would be appropriate in this case because the applicant is already appealing the first enforcement order, and I don't believe we would have a chance to amend that as far as his appeal goes. I feel that we probably need a new enforcement order. If this is actually going to be appealed, we can't keep adding to an enforcement order if the applicant is in the midst of appealing with some other entity other than ourselves. I therefore think an appropriate thing would be to issue a second enforcement order that is a violation of our first, in that we have requested a revision to a plan to restore the site to its pre-violation condition by planting a number of trees. And we have on record what that requirement is, that it's a certain number of trees of a certain type of species, and we gave the client quite a bit of leeway, although we did say that certain species would not be acceptable for this, and this was the basis for the unacceptability of the revised planting plan that was submitted by the applicant. So I feel an enforcement order that points to the fact that the original enforcement order has been violated by non-compliance and non-response should be issued, and that the fines that we referred to at the second September meeting should be put in place immediately, retroactive to October 10th, which was the date that we had requested the revised plan. Now, October 10th gave the applicant an additional 2 weeks to come in with an acceptable plan. He had a wetland scientist already employed on the case, and I feel that it's been a month, and certainly that should have been enough time for a restoration plan on a 12,000 square foot lot. So if, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to make a motion.
The floor is yours. I was actually going to ask if that was a motion. So.
So I would move to issue a second enforcement order to Paul Mercier on the 5157 Shirley Ave project site, citing the fact that the original enforcement order requested a restoration plan of replanting to remediate the trees that were cut down on the lot. This plan was not acceptable to the commission, and no attempt has been made in the last 30 days to submit a plan that's acceptable to this commission. And the applicant, if they have been in touch, is aware that we said that if no plan was forthcoming on October 10th, that fines would be reinstituted starting from that time forth. So my second part of the motion is that as part of this enforcement order, we issue fines retroactive to October 10th and going forward from that date to such date as we actually receive an acceptable restoration plan for the site.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, for discussion. As a point of procedure, and I suppose I don't know the answer to this question, does issuing a secondary enforcement order that not discussing the fines, which would be as a result of a finding of a violation or a continuing or secondary violation, which we certainly can do. I'm more concerned with issuing a secondary enforcement order that orders essentially the same thing that we've already requested. Does that nullify the first enforcement order? How does that impact what's been done? I mean,
No, a second enforcement order will not nullify the original enforcement order. That still stands. I think from a procedural perspective, the only issue that may be worth considering is that a second enforcement order to itself indicating a violation of the original could then be appealed within the 60 days of the issuance of that, whereas the original, although an appeal of that enforcement order was hinted at by the applicant or their consultant, it never was. We've never received to date any formal action on that enforcement order. So by levying fines based on that enforcement order, which still lays out the requirements, there wouldn't be an opportunity for an appeal. But by issuing a follow-up secondary enforcement order, that enforcement order could be appealed to Superior Court. Because it makes sense, because it's a second enforcement order.
right, you mean the second enforcement order could be appealed. Certainly any enforcement order can be appealed, so.
Can be, but the lapse period for that on the original is basically passed. It was yesterday. However, I think the concept or the intent of where Commissioner Varnum's going with the second enforcement order is that it clearly states findings as to why a second fine needs to be issued, and it also would state, I think, also clearly in that enforcement order, the performance, not the performance standards, but the requirements, the information requirements that you laid out in the September meeting could be then once again enumerated within that enforcement order and strengthened.
Well, we have, as it stands now, we have an original enforcement order that issued September.
October 23rd is when the original enforcement order was issued.
No, it was back in September.
It was ratified by the commission in September, but it was issued by staff in October. I mean, pardon me, August.
In August, I'm sorry. So, and it was ratified in September,
It would have been the following meeting from the 23rd, so
which would have been the first September meeting. So the time period for the appeal on that has come and gone.
correct.
So whether that was appealed, we don't know yet. We haven't received any official notice of that. It could have been, we just don't know. We're not aware of it.
But typically, we get it the same or the next day after it's been filed with the court, but, you know, it's possible that we could get something tomorrow.
Now, so we still have an original enforcement order. The motion is for a secondary enforcement order. Now, you don't need to find additional violations. You don't need an additional enforcement order. Violations can be found standing on their own. I mean, and technically each day can be a separate violation, but if I may, just the ignoring a point of an enforcement order is itself a separate violation. So for instance, an enforcement order can order you to do 3 things, and you do 2 of them, but you don't do the 3rd one. That can be a violation. If you don't do all 3 of them, that could be 3 separate violations. It's not just a violation of the enforcement order. It's in violation. You can find 3 separate violations. Now, the motion by Commissioner Varnum, as it stands now, is to issue a secondary enforcement order. And I guess I want to fully understand this, is a secondary enforcement order to require Mr. Mercy or his agent or representative to appear in front of us at our next hearing date, which would be the 1st November date, and and to provide us with, secondarily, to provide us with a restoration plan in line with what was discussed in the last September hearing, correct? And thirdly, and now this was all made a part of one motion, was it your intent, Commissioner Varnum, to include within the secondary enforcement order a finding of violation of the first enforcement order, which indicated he was to appear before us on October 10th with a suitable restoration plan as discussed in the last September meeting, and because Mr. Mercier failed to appear in front of us on October 10th, therefore, at that point in time, that was a violation, and to issue fines going forward from that date until such time that Mr. Mercier submits an appropriate restoration plan. Is that, I guess what I'm trying to get, is that part of the enforcement order, or is that, even though it was one motion, is that a motion for a separate violation? I think they should be separate,
Should
but.
be separate. Well, I could amend that, my motion to remove the language about the fine from the secondary enforcement order motion.
All right.
That doesn't mean that I am canceling my idea about a fine. You're just saying that it should not be in the enforcement order. It should be a separate motion, which,
Yeah, I think the enforcement order, or the secondary enforcement order, should stand all on its own, because you're ordering something to be done proactively. And that's, I think, part of an enforcement order. The finding of violation, I think, is a separate matter, because that speaks to your original motion, which you reminded us correctly, was to start ticking as of the October 10th, and failing to receive an amended or an appropriate restoration plan by that time, was to start fines all, anew again.
there was actually a gap there, because we did receive a plan, but the plan was not acceptable, so we had 5 days of fines, and then there was a gap, and then we discussed at the meeting that we would begin the fines again if the plan was not received by October 10th.
Yeah, so I'd like, I guess as a matter of procedure, like to keep the finding in violation as a separate motion and a separate discussion.
I've moved to remove the provision for fines from the original motion that I made.
All right, do I have a second for that?
Second.
All right, by Commissioner Biedron. All right, now, okay, now, as far as the second motion, and that's to remove the violation, is there any, from the original motion, which was to issue a secondary enforcement order, as to the amended, as to the secondary motion by Commissioner Varnum as seconded, any further discussion on that? And that's just to remove the finding in violation and the fines. No further discussion. All right. All in favor signify by saying yea or nay. Commissioner Lovely? Commissioner Varnum?
Aye.
Chair is yes. Commissioner Chalupka? Commissioner Biedron?
Aye.
Okay, so now back to the original motion as amended now, which is to issue a secondary enforcement order, and I believe, well, it was seconded, so it's on the table. Any further discussion there? All right. No further discussion, Commissioner Lovely, Commissioner Varnum? Chair, yeah, I just want to reiterate that the secondary enforcement order is one for Mr. Mercier and/or his representative or agent to appear before us at the November It's the November, no, it wouldn't be the 4th.
14th.
14th?
14th.
That the November 14th hearing of the Lowell Conservation Commission, and secondarily, to supply the commission with an updated or amended or a secondary restoration plan in line with what was discussed at the last September hearing date.
How do we do that? Do we notify him via letter?
Well, yeah, I mean, that would, well, it's going to go out, it would go out as an enforcement order if
he'll
the
get that?
commission.
Okay.
Right, if the commission approves it.
Correct, there's an actual document that
I'll get
tonight
mail.
we'll have it signed, and then we'll have it sent out probably, next couple days.
Remember there was some confusion with an address? Is he good now?
Yeah, there's no confusion about
Okay,
the
good.
address. We
All
got
right,
it.
I don't
so.
know if we need a constable or,
Well, the address is per the assessor's office, so,
Yeah.
right. So that's my understanding of the motion. All right. Any further discussion? Okay. You all in favor or opposed signify by saying yea or nay. Commissioner Lovely, aye. Commissioner Varnum, chair is yes. Commissioner Chalupa, Commissioner Bedrin?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. The secondary enforcement order will issue as made by Commissioner Varnum. Now,
Pardon me, to interject, I just didn't catch you seconded the motion.
say that again?
I didn't catch you seconded that motion.
That, the original one was seconded by, I think, Commissioner Bedrin.
Okay.
The amended one was seconded by Commissioner Lovely.
Okay, that's,
Both
Thank you.
motions were made by Commissioner Varnum.
got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, we've already discussed it, but
so, I have a question. So we issued, like Commissioner Varnum was saying, we issued the fines for 5 days, hence the 50.
that was already done. That's
So that was done.
come
They
and
gave us a
gone.
plan, and that stopped the fines, because the plan got here.
Correct.
And now we don't agree with the plan, so we got to basically figure out when we want to start the fines again.
Right, and there was, as Commissioner Varnum outlined for us and brought, and reminded us, as part of her motion as, back on the original enforcement order, was to update the restoration plan, and if not by October 10th, then fines would start again.
Okay, and then I thought I heard that they were here on the 10th, but we didn't have a quorum? They
Well,
weren't here?
yeah, that, on the 10th, we didn't have a quorum.
So they
And-
weren't here on the 10th
Yeah,
regardless?
and I don't want to speak for another commissioner, but this is where Commissioner Varnum and I are going to disagree, I suppose. She wants retroactive and, well, we don't have a motion on the table, so why don't we get a motion on the table first?
I would move to issue fines for the non-compliance with submitting a restoration plan for 5157 Shirley Ave. And since this restoration plan has not been received at the date that it was ordered, which is October 10th, I'd move that fines be retroactive to that date until such date as this restoration plan is received.
All right, and do we have an amount?
$300 a day.
All right, okay, the motion is a finding in violation for failing to, one, appear at the October 10th hearing, and two, to provide us with an updated restoration plan in accordance with the motion made by Commissioner Varnum at the last September hearing, and three, to issue a per diem fine retroactive to and beginning October 10th and continuing until such time that an updated restoration plan is received from Mr. Mercia. That's correct? Okay, do I have a second on that? Yeah.
So 300.
Yeah, 4,200. It'd be more than that because that's today.
The clock's still ticking, so if we don't get a plan by tomorrow, that'd be enough. I'm wondering if it makes sense to build in a few days grace period moving forward, recognizing that I think a fine for a non-responsive employee is fair and appropriate, but if we're just making this new tonight, I do think it may be appropriate to at least give a short window to the applicant to respond, maybe another 5-day window before we start adding additional funds.
Well, as a point of procedure, can I at least get a second on the motion, or otherwise it's going to die?
I'll second.
All right.
Just
Okay, so we have a second on the motion. Now, I'm assuming that's opening it up for discussion, and you can make an alternate motion if you want.
So, the comment I made, I put off that for discussion, and potential to modify the motion, depending on what the other commissioners have to say.
All right.
Could we
As
vote-
I said earlier, I guess I'm a little bit more liberal. I'm more inclined to give Mr. Mercier the benefit of the doubt that perhaps he may have been here on October 10th, even though I know he wasn't because I wasn't here. But we didn't have a quorum, we didn't have a meeting. I'm more inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt and start the fines as of the next regularly held meeting, which would have been today. That's me. That may not be anyone else, but that's me. So I would be more inclined to go along with a motion that started the fines as of today until such time that Mr. Mercier complied with both the first and the second enforcement order that are right now open and active. So. Which is to furnish the commission with, one, to appear in front of us, but to stop the fines, to furnish us with an updated restoration plan.
I second that if that's a motion.
Well, I can't make the
you
motion,
can't,
so.
right.
Commissioner Lovely, would you accept that as a motion? Would that satisfy the spirit of your proposed alternative motion?
I would.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Okay, do I have a motion?
He just
Did
motioned.
I commission up?
Yep.
My motion would be, as an alternative to Commissioner Varnum's motion, would be to initiate fines for the failure to provide a restoration plan as requested in the first order, using today as the start date with that fine of $300 a day to continue moving forward until such time we receive the plan.
So essentially Commissioner Varnum's plan, but starting today as opposed to October 10th.
Correct.
All right, do I have a second on that? And I believe
Second.
Commissioner Biedron, okay.
Is
All
there
right.
any way we can notify him, like via email?
Well, the violation will go, like the enforcement, the secondary enforcement or the violation, whichever one, we have two of them on the table right now.
Yeah.
Whichever one is approved will go out additionally.
Like a letter will go out tomorrow, or?
A letter will go out as well as a ticket. We don't have an email address. I'm not sure if Mr. Mercier has one, but we will email Steve Erickson so he is aware. And we actually may hand deliver, in this case,
Okay.
the violation notice with the ticket that issues the fine, just to make sure that there's no question
Okay.
as to.
And I should note, a copy of that should also go to Attorney Joseph Claremont. He was his legal counsel
We can do that if you wish.
at the September
Okay.
hearing. I don't know if he still is his legal counsel, but he was at that point in time, so. All right, so we have the alternate motion by Commissioner Lovely on the table. We'll take that one first and then take up the secondary one, or the primary one by Commissioner Varnum second. Is there any further discussion on those? All right, so the secondary motion I'll call first because it came second. It sounds backwards, but that's the way it goes. The secondary motion by Commissioner Lovely, all in favor or opposed signify by saying yea or nay. Commissioner Lovely? Commissioner Varnum?
Yes.
Chair is yes. Commissioner Chalupka?
Aye.
Commissioner Biedron?
Aye.
Okay, so that one carried. Now, the primary motion, the alternate motion, since it was approved now, renders the primary motion moot, so, since it passed, so, I don't, do we need to take a formal vote on it? I don't think we do, but, because it was an alternate
No, I
motion
don't
on the
think so.
table.
I think the
Yeah.
amended motion would
I'll
stand.
withdraw the motion.
No, I don't even, okay. Well,
Now it's formal.
Makes it clean. All right. Now, because this is somewhat related, and before we act on the Cambridge Street enforcement order, I'd like to entertain a motion at this point in time that Aaron Clausen, I know you already are a conservation agent, but let's formalize it, that Aaron Clausen, Swathi Joseph, and Joseph Jenowitz can act as City of Lowell conservation agents, as recognized by the Wetlands Protection Act and the City of Lowell ordinance. Basically, what that if and when you peruse those, it's any individual member of the commission has the authority to sign an enforcement order, and not only any individual member, but also our agent has the authority to do that, subject to ratification at the next hearing of the full Conservation Commission. So what that allows is, it allows our agent in the field to act on our behalf in emergency situations. Also, I guess, Aaron, you've requested that, is there a separate procedure, is a separate bylaw in the City of Lowell requiring that a ticket be signed by an agent or the commission?
No, it's just that under the 21D, Mass General Law 21D, there is the ability for the community, the municipality, to levy fines under any ordinance, including, zoning, parking. All these are all kind of under the same kind of fines that are levied. There's a process whereby those have to be issued. So as the conservation agent, we can sign that ticket and send that once it's voted on. We would never issue a ticket unless the Conservation Commission votes to do so. But we would just enact that, and we would sign that on behalf of the Conservation Commission.
Now,
I don't think there's any separate action.
That's not a situation where it would come back before us for ratification. It's more of that particular situation is more of a situation where you're certifying that the commission has ordered this, has ordered the fine, and you're just certifying that that's what we did.
Correct.
As
right.
agent.
The vote to levy the fine would already take place. Once that happens, we then issue that as we would an order of conditions. The vote takes place to issue an order. We then issue that on behalf of the Conservation Commission. So that ticket would take place after that vote.
I don't see anything that would cause me pause to be concerned about that. Do I have a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion to authorize, ratify?
Yeah, authorize.
Aaron Clausen, Joe Jenowitz, and Swathi Joseph as conservation agents for the City of Lowell.
All right, do I have a second?
A second.
Any discussion?
Congratulations.
All in favor signify by saying yea or nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Aye, the ayes. Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Now, moving on to 125 Cambridge Street, an enforcement order. There was some cutting along the River Meadow Brook. This is in the Tanner Street district. There was some cutting and filling along the River Meadow Brook. And I know, I've seen some photographs already, and Aaron had contacted me the other day, yesterday, I believe, right? Yeah.
That's correct. This is we were provided notice of some potential activity. In this case, they were aware when whoever called us and let us know that this was going on, that there was trees being cut down and cleared right along the bank of the River Meadow Brook. This was yesterday. Swati went out to inspect the site and got some pictures. See if I can get those up here. That's definitely not it.
That's Utah.
So this is just a shot along River Meadowbrook, and this pile that you see right here is the wood chip from the trees that were cut down. So it was more than just trees cleared along the bank. It looks like the bank itself was altered and that there was fill dumped into the jurisdictional areas, including the inland bank. This is floodplain as well, and then you can see it actually starting to fall down into the river itself. This is just from the other side. You can see that this is the area where the clearing is, and it's hard to see in this picture, but this is all wood chips from the clearing. And it's 133 Cambridge Street, so there's a small little spur of Cambridge Street that goes off of Tanner Street, and it's behind the buildings there's a cluster of buildings in the corner of Tanner and Cambridge. It's actually behind those buildings in between the River Meadow Brook.
All right, and we're correct, this is the River Meadow Brook.
Correct.
Okay, now, and I know Swati Joseph has issued a preliminary enforcement order. What specifically, because we don't, I know I got a copy of it, but I don't know if anyone else, I don't think anyone else did, so.
Yeah, we could just grab that file for a sec.
What were the findings and what were the orders?
Well, the findings was that there's clearing of trees and filling within the 100-year floodplain, as well as alteration of the inland bank, riverfront area, and bordering vegetated wetlands. It's a clear violation of the Mass Wetlands Protection Act and the Lowell Wetlands Ordinance. The order included a restoration plan. It's again be submitted on or before November 7th in preparation for the November 14th Conservation Commission meeting. The plans would include removal, fill placed in the floodplain, sedimentation and erosion control measures to stabilize the altered grades, replanting of the altered area with trees and ground cover. That's the stated requirements of the replanting and mitigation plan that would be required by the 7th, and again reviewed by the 14th. There is a cease and desist as well, but it appears the work's already done.
Has there been any further work out there? To the best of your knowledge, have we been in direct contact with the property owners?
Not yet. We hand-delivered the enforcement order yesterday, and then also sent it via certified mail, but when it was delivered, the property owner was not there to receive it.
All right, do we know who it was hand-delivered to?
It was to a tenant. There's a U-Haul business there that was...
Do we know who was doing the cutting and the filling?
We're not entirely sure, but the enforcement order is being issued to the property owner. There's a number of parcels there that appear to be all under the same ownership of a...
All right, today is the 24th, and the 7th is 2 weeks from today. And the next meeting is the 14th?
Correct.
Okay, all right, so that gives them a week prior to our meeting to submit a restoration plan for the filing deadline. I mean, my preference would have been, by the end of the week before that, to give you time to get it into our packets and whatnot, but I'm not going to change that part and require something new. I think that's just make work at this point in time. I think we really need to focus on stabilizing the site and making sure that, you know, the wood chips are a really bad thing to have falling into the River Meadow Brook, and to stabilizing that prior to any heavy rains coming in. Has there been any, there's been no contact from the property owner at all? We've
Not as of yet, no.
Okay. I mean, I for one think the primary focus right now should be in stabilizing that and isolating it from the brook itself prior to anything, and to be doing that forthwith. You know, I think we need to impress upon the tenant to perhaps get in touch. Do we have an address for the property owner?
We do. It was mailed to the address that,
Is he local
147
or
Cambridge
she?
Street.
Say again?
147 Cambridge Street.
Yeah, that's the property owner?
Yeah.
But that's a industrial site, though. Do we have a residential address or a
Oh,
business
residential
address for the property
I
owner?
don't, we haven't gone that far to look
Okay,
into.
that's the only address we have?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it, I suppose that's where the tax bill is mailed?
Correct.
So, all right, okay. Is the property owner a person or an entity?
It's, the property that the work was most closely adjacent to is 133 Cambridge Street, is owned by James Bond. And it appears that the parcels that are adjacent to 133, 143, I think it's 155, are owned under different entities. You know, there's I think there's a couple trusts, but one of them's a Bond Realty Trust LLC. So it appears that they're all owned under the same, as a single ownership entity, just under different trusts. But
All right. All right.
we can continue to reach out to them and try to.
Yeah, I would like to, I know the enforcement order is issued, but also try and make some efforts to speak to a live, warm body, to impress upon them how, you know, how serious and important this is. So, any questions?
One point I can make, if the commission would prefer, that we can amend the enforcement order to prioritize restoration in the short term and you know, restoring the bank itself, removing the wood chips, and dealing with the restoration plan, planting and that sort of thing after the next meeting. If that makes more sense, we can amend the enforcement order so that we prioritize the restoration of it by removing the chips.
Yeah, I think, sort of a dangerous, I know I opened the door on that, but it's sort of a dangerous thing to do, as we've seen when you open that door to interpretation as to what they can do, and before you know it, you have a 30-ton bucket loader in there, clear cutting and clearing out, and you know, who knows what they're doing in order to get a couple of wheelbarrows full, or, you know, a dump truck full of wood chips out of there. So, you know, I suppose I'd rather have someone here that's representative and control of the site prior to them doing anything other than just, you know, putting up some hay bale, you know, not hay bales, but siltation barrier. You know, anything other than that, and that only that should be done under direct supervision of a conservation agent. So,
Okay.
Anything other than that, no, and certainly no heavy equipment. So it just, you know, it would be hand only. So, so do I have a motion to ratify the enforcement order as issued?
I'll offer a motion to ratify the enforcement order as issued.
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Lovely, seconded by Commissioner Bedrin. Any discussion? All in favor or opposed signify by saying yea or nay. Commissioner Lovely, Commissioner Varnum. Chair is yes. Commissioner Chaluka.
Aye.
Commissioner Bedrin.
Aye.
All right, so the enforcement order is ratified. And certainly, Aaron, try and track down, and engage some dialogue and let them know in accordance with what we've discussed here tonight. All right. Minutes.
There's a couple other enforcement items that we can touch on. These aren't as detailed as Cambridge Street is. There was another concern raised to us at 162 Townsend Ave. Essentially, it was paving that was done without a paving permit, driveway permit, which I know is not necessarily purview of the Conservation Commission. However, it is about, the extent of it is within about 25 feet of Clay Pit Brook, and is clearly within the buffer area, is in a floodplain. And so we had a discussion on the site. I believe it was Friday, that Joe Jenowitz had a conversation, and we had discussed having them come in, the property owner come in to our department and discuss what the steps are, what the options are. Either remove the paving or go through a process with the Conservation Commission. They have yet to come in, so we issued a violation letter just to say you need to establish a date that you will come in and discuss options. And I think it was Friday that we're looking to see some response, either this Friday or Monday, from them. If there isn't any, we will be looking to issue an enforcement order on that one in the future.
All right, I didn't hear that last part.
If we don't have any response on the violation notice by the deadline, which is next Monday.
Next Monday?
Yes, this coming Monday.
And you'll issue an enforcement order at that point in time?
If we don't get any communication from them at that point, correct.
Was this new pavement or
It's new pavement.
new pavement?
Yeah.
So does technically, you said they're in the buffer zone?
They're within the buffer zone of a bank. They are probably in riverfront, and they are definitely in a floodplain.
So technically, would they need a permit for that?
So this, well, let me ask, this was new pavement? There was no previous pavement there?
Correct. New
That-
pavement.
Well, not only do they need a permit, it's fill
Yeah.
in a floodplain. It's a clear violation.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's several jurisdictional areas there. Has an enforcement order issued?
No, the violation notice, because we had a conversation with them this Friday, and our expectation is that they were going to cooperate and work with the department to, either remove the fill, the pavement, or go through the process with the Conservation Commission to receive order conditions. But since we hadn't heard anything since this past Monday, we issued a violation notice to give them until Monday to comply, so that we can continue work in cooperation. So that is, we're trying to make sure that we're working together rather than in a kind of
Slapping
a
down
friendly
enforcement.
manner. Yeah.
All right.
If we don't receive any communication by Monday, we'll issue an enforcement order by then. They did speak with the engineering department, because they do need to seek a paving or driveway permit as well. So I think they just may have misunderstood that one meeting covered all the bases.
I'm assuming there was some regrading done too prior to pavement being brought in. They have
Yeah,
to.
there must have. It's not a great paving job, let's put it that way, but there may have been some regrading.
All right. Was there anything else? You had indicated a couple things.
And then lastly, there was some discussion on 40 Lexington Ave, again in the same neighborhood. There was some sand that was brought in and placed on the property. I had a meeting this evening with the property owner. She was unaware that she was in the floodplain. The reason it took so long to get responses, they're not living there yet. So we had actually hand-delivered the enforcement order, or the violation notice in this case, I apologize. That got a response, and she's working with us. What she'd like to do is what they did is they brought in 15 cubic yards of sand because a retaining wall was removed. There were railroad ties from the driveway. It's holding up the driveway to the property. Those were deteriorating. They were removed. They brought in the fill to shore them up. What she would like to do is just remove 15 cubic yards in compensation of material. So I don't know if the commission would like them to go through a full, request for determination, or notice of intent, if they're going to go ahead and comply and provide us with details and where and what and how much.
Yeah, Lexington Ave, unfortunately, 15 cubic yards is not a spit in the bucket.
Correct.
That's half of one of that's a 10-wheeler.
Right.
That's a big truck.
Right.
That's half of an 18.
Is that how much sand can
Yeah, that's a huge amount of fill. And Lexington Ave, I mean, I'd love to say, yeah, file an RDA, but you can't. I mean, you've got to match the grades, and you can't, I mean, even an inch in that neighborhood is too much.
I believe the whole lot is in the floodplain.
Yeah, the entire lot is in the floodplain.
Yeah, I mean, they'd have to file a notice of intent with full engineering to do something like that. You could be, I mean, even if you would say, well, we're gonna take out 15 yards and bring it back to the same grade, I don't know how you guarantee that, so, I mean, any project in those neighborhoods, especially something that's entirely below the floodplain, I mean, you can't change the grades. I mean, you're stuck with what's there, and if you change the grades, then you have to have appropriate engineering to show that you're not altering the floodplain. Even the DEP and some of their latest slip opinions and letter opinions have been indicating that even wheelbarrow fulls are not de minimis amounts of fill. So they're, I mean, that's, unfortunately, those neighborhoods they were hit hard. And, is this a new owner?
It is correct.
Okay, yeah.
Within the last 6 weeks, well, probably 9 weeks at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you hate to say, you're doing some stuff, but it's, I mean, we don't know the level of regrading or, what they're doing. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I suppose they could come in with an RDA, but, I mean, there's a real substantial risk that it goes right, straight to a finding of, that it is jurisdictional and applicable, and then you just have to come in with an NOI. There's no easy answer to that.
Right.
So.
Okay. We'll work with them to prepare the documentation. For
Yeah.
that.
I mean, floodplain issues in some areas perhaps are not as significant, but that's, every spit in the bucket in those neighborhoods are critical, so. All right, we have anything further?
That's it.
All right, we have minutes from September 12th, September 26th, and October 10th for consideration and approval. Yeah, okay, no, I don't, has anyone even reviewed them? All right, so why don't we table those?
Did you not receive any minutes from us? Okay.
They're on the website, I read them, but I can't do anything about it, so, they're on, if you click through on the date on the open projects page, which has the Planning, Zoning, and Conservation Commission, if you click on the date, that'll bring you to the Conservation Commission page, and then right at the top, you'll see agendas well, no, if you click on the date, you'll get the agenda.
Right.
But if you click on the conservation, it's up in the upper left-hand corner. If you click on the Conservation Commission page, that'll bring you, there's a link for minutes, and there's a link for agendas, fast agendas and past minutes, so.
We'll just email them. I know we're still working through this this FTP type access. I think for emails or minutes, the documents are small, so it's easy for us to email those. We'll email those out for the next meeting then.
Why don't we table those? I don't think we need to make a motion on that till the next meeting, so everyone has had a chance to review them. All right, do I have without anything further, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I have one last notice. This I promise
all right.
will be quick and easy in paying this. There is a visioning session for the Greater Lowell Open Space Plan that's been scheduled by NEMCOG, and it's scheduled for November 15th at 6:30, and it's at UMass Lowell Inn and Conference Center. We got this today. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
All right.
Will do, absolutely.
Actually, I'd just like to mention, I think everyone got the email, but we have 3 new sycamores in response. So that was, they were put in last week, down at the Renaissance on the river, the old Lawrence Mills project. So if you have a chance to get down there and enjoy them, 2 of them are in the open space by the old raceways, and the third one is over between the 2 buildings, between the 2 main buildings, in the open courtyard area. So I'd like to, I mean, I know it was a result of a violation, but I'd like to acknowledge at least Charter, because I went down there on the couple of days that they were doing it, and the trees are substantial, and they spent, a lot of effort to put them in. So I for one at least appreciate their efforts in doing that and working with the folks at Renaissance on the river, because they were planted not on their own property, they were planted off-site. So, and Aaron, what I'd like to do is discuss with you, and perhaps, I don't know how we can get this done, maybe use some of our own funds and have the city fund it, but and perhaps open it up for discussion, but I'd like to get some sort of marker, some permanent marker, perhaps by the 2 trees. Maybe we could even talk to the National Park Service to maybe get a station. They have those sign, those waist-high sign post stations indicating significant. And I know these aren't historic now, but the trees themselves were historic, and they're actually, if you look at one of the markers, the old trees that were taken down are actually in the glass plate photograph from 1893, and the trees were already over the tops of the mills back then. And these 3 are partial compensation to replace those sycamores, those historic sycamores which were taken down. But I think it would be appropriate at some point in time to investigate or to look into putting some sort of permanent marker, either maybe like a grass level granite marker, or something different. I'd leave that up to the planners and the architects and the artists to come up with something a little bit more appropriate to signify the importance of those trees. I kind of had a smile on my face the end of last week after that was done. So it's a step in the right direction. So, all right, with nothing further, a motion to adjourn?
Motion
By
to adjourn.
Commissioner Lovely, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Biedron. All in favor, opposed, signify by saying yea or nay. All
Aye.
opposed? None. Good night. We have a couple things to sign.